Well, welcome to my house, and thank you very much to André de Vet for joining me today. I'll give the listeners and viewers a little bit of a background about André, and I'm going to read it from my screen because I think this particular introduction from Faster Capital was very, very good. And it will give a nice rounded introduction to who André is, and then hopefully we'll discover more as we go along. Cape Town-based André is a senior C-level executive and seasoned entrepreneur, which we'll get into, and I know from myself and from the conversations we've had is definitely true. You specifically help companies grow and launch products in the mobile, digital, and e-commerce fields at the moment.
Yeah.
And that is with a view to a global growth as well. Is that right? Yes. Okay. As CEO of Second Base Inc., which is your firm, that helps venture capital backed tech companies break specifically into Asia, Africa, and Latin America is your sweet spot, right?
Yeah, we're focusing more on Africa currently, but of Asia, we have a great network there, and in Middle East, North Africa.
Okay, brilliant. Now, I want to get a little bit and get to know you a little bit, and without sounding like a job interview or really, but can you? I know that you. I think you grew up up north, right? In
Johannesburg, yeah.
And went to school in Pretoria, and then
correct, yeah.
And then I see from your LinkedIn profile as well that you originally went to med school.
I did.
University of Free State, but
yes.
Way back in the mid 80s, by the way.
Mid 80s, yeah.
Okay, so in brief, what happened after that to get you into sort of the 90s and some of the tech boom and that sort of thing? Was there a decade where you were doing odd jobs? I know that I saw an interview where you admitted to being a door-to-door salesman for Encyclopedia.
Very much so.
Very
much so. Rob, that in itself is a very, very interesting training ground. And when I speak to and work with startups and scale-ups and businesses that are growing, is the amount of stuff that I learned in the direct marketing. Because it's the cold face that you've got to get into someone's house and you've got to sell a product and you've got to that's your money that you're going to eat off. You're going to do that within an hour or two, and you've got to get into that. So the whole sales process is fast, and the psychology behind it. You're out in the street, you're knocking doors, it's at night, it's raining, so you've got to learn these things. You've got to understand the dynamic of things. You've got to be clever about how you sell things and how you structure things. You've got to understand how to run a team to be able to do this. There's a very interesting scaling of layers and you can use a parallel on this when you're doing big deals. There's a different way that you slowly but surely increase the value of the deal, or you increase the seniority of the person that somebody's talking to. We used to go from door to door where you'd have somebody make an appointment that then hands the appointment across to his manager. The next night you swap roles, and the same guy that is making the appointment was the manager the night before. It's all about perception. Mm-hmm. So, it taught me a tremendous amount of stuff. Sure, it's hustling in an interesting aspect. But those were the days when you were building businesses. There wasn't venture capital around. Mm. There wasn't, this whole play around with valuations and trying to get, to big valuations. To what you earned and what you made is the money you could spend. There wasn't this whole startup. I sometimes sit and I talk to some of the early stage startups, and the guys are like, we've got a product, but it'll be so much better if we get more money and then we could sell more. And then I'm like, but can the first product sell? And they're like, yeah. I say, why don't you sell the product? Because that'll give you the money to go to the next level. People get snowed under this concept of having to always raise venture capital. The market's big enough, and if your product is good enough, you're in a position to be able to get it into market. To be able to sell more, and that in itself draws more venture capital or access to capital. So there's an interesting dynamic around that.
It's interesting you to say that, because do you think then in some cases with some of the firms that you work with that you've come across that there's a desire or a focus on getting the funding as opposed to making the product work almost?
Yes. So, I've got to add a caveat in there, because currently that in itself is a business.
Yes.
Now, so other of the other businesses that I speak to. So I over the last 2 years, I've been working with with some very close friends of mine or business associates of mine out of India, very bright guys, ex Nokia, ex IBM, ex Akamai, and explaining to them that the whole basis of growing a business, so that we've been working with telcos and a few others, but there's so much venture capital available that in itself is a business that if you can create value and the perception of value. Take a look at most of the unicorns out there currently. Most of them are not profitable. But they're unicorns and they got massive valuations. You take a look at all the food delivery and the fast deliveries and all of that type of stuff. There's massive, absurd valuations. The food delivery businesses, Just Eat, Deliveroo, Uber Eats, all of those. Yeah. It's a race to the bottom. Restaurants suffer. The delivery guys suffer. Nobody wins, and there's no there's no way you can create a value, a loyalty. It's not a product that if you're the bigger and the faster one, the guy's going to go to the food that's closest to him that works for him. He doesn't care about the brand. He doesn't care about Mr. Delivery or Uber Eats or wherever it is.
Bolt now doing it as well.
Bolt.
Yeah.
KFC's doing it direct, and a bunch of others. The direct, I think, is going to win in the long run, but there's massive amounts of money going into the delivery business.
Can I just jump in there and actually ask you a question? And this is really more for a little bit for me, but also for those who may be listening that don't really understand that funding side of it and the valuation side of it. I understand that, again, you've just touched on the word perception there, that these companies would have huge valuations potentially and be able to attract lots and lots of funding and lots of interest. But what's that based on? Is it scalability and only scalability? Because all I then read is that these companies, not just the food delivery companies, but like companies like WeWork, for instance, who seem to be still around somehow, and they have these massive valuations. And why?
A few things. So it's size of. I read an article recently in Forbes where I was talking about distribution trumps innovation.
Yeah, I was going to touch on that. Yeah.
So the whole basis around that is that if you are the biggest guy in the playground, and you get to own that market. Facebook did it. Remember, Facebook was the 30th or 32nd social media platform that launched.
Yeah, I remember Friends Reunited.
MySpace, a bunch of them that I'd met some of the guys when I was living in UK. We'd work closely with them. And Facebook was just the more clever one, the better one, the faster one. They just got it right. And this is the thing that everybody's going for. So venture capital goes and says, okay, who's going to get it right? Let's see who we back. You take a look at those little scooters, Lime, and they've got weird names. But the amount of money that's gone behind them, because somebody is hoping somebody wins.
Same with the taxi service. Well, they're not
but what's interesting about these things is what we're starting to pick up now is there's enough space for more. Bolt has just raised, under correction, either 400 or 800 million dollars.
For this market?
Yeah, for the African market.
For
emerging markets. So Bolt sits in emerging markets. I don't know their whole reach, but they've just raised a stupid amount. You would have thought Uber owns everything.
Yeah.
Well, we learned in Asia that Uber lost against Grab in Singapore and Malaysia. They lost against Gojek in Indonesia.
Didi, was it in China?
Didi Kaying in China. They lost against them there. Across most of the emerging markets. And this is an interesting topic that we can delve into a little bit later. That is one of my favorites, is that you find European thinking and first world thinking comes into the emerging markets and they miss the point because they want to bring in European thinking into it.
Well, let's talk about it now, because I can give you an example. Obviously, as you know, the bulk of my work over the last 20 years has been in one particular sector, which is legal. $1 trillion industry, huge services industry, obviously. But I have lost count of the amount of firms from the US and the UK that I have assisted in helping move into emerging markets, but they have insisted on doing it their way, the way that they know works, and it doesn't work. 99 times out of 100, that attitude to that local market is not going to work. I've also done it myself. I mean, I won't go into too many details on this particular chat, but I had an approach to Hong Kong that was quite open in terms of how do you want to work, and how does this market work, and then we'll go in and we'll tailor our services. We did the same here in South Africa. Both worked. Tried to do it differently in Japan, failed miserably.
Yeah.
So sorry, but you
No. What, 100%. When we were growing iFlix, so we brought iFlix into Africa. They're a Malaysian-backed, very well funded. They're now sold out to a Chinese company. The name's it's a weird name, so it skips my mind. But what we did here is, when I was speaking to the guys there, we'd grown into across Africa. So we helped them, brought them in, helped them grow into 8 countries. We opened 5 offices, put a ton of staff down, raised money locally. And then they would say the marketing campaign in Nigeria was great. Let's do it in Kenya as well. I'm like, guys, it's 8 hours with a plane apart. Now, you've got to understand there's a different, it's 54 countries across the continent. Every single one of them is different. Coming into a new continent, and I think this is probably a colonial hangover, but also then a hangover that comes from a Silicon Valley thinking. You sit in Silicon Valley, you're so far removed, it's about 12 hours, so it's the other side of the planet, from the emerging markets. The American mindset, as much as I enjoy it, is very much, but is there a different world outside of America? So they come with lots of money.
You wouldn't think so when you spend a lot of time.
What's fascinating is this game about venture capital and how you play the venture capital game is that if you can go and you've raised money and you in America and you're in the UK and maybe in a European country, and this is where we focus, or have focused a lot of our business on, is to help companies to expand into another 5 countries and get 1 million new customers. Because why? Because now I can raise another $100 million. And so I'm not playing the game of what's happening in the country, I'm raising the other money. So what's happened now in emerging markets is the emerging market guys have gone clever. And the focus, the clever venture capital money is now starting to come straight into these markets, because these guys understand the market. They copy what comes out of any one of these things. So the Bolt example is a great one. So Bolt copied what Uber was doing, and they just perfected it and made it better. Gojek did exactly the same in Indonesia, Grab in Singapore and Malaysia. All of those guys just did it better. And this is the trust factor that happens. So emerging markets are not emerging thinking anymore. It's very clever guys.
Yeah.
What's happened? Nigeria is a very good example. So I'm falling a little bit wide here, but let's work with it, because it's lacquer when it starts flowing. So Nigeria is a very classic example. Nigeria, great education, and then they all go to America and go and study there. Vast amounts of them. Go and work at a merchant bank for a couple of years, and then come back. The Nigerian market is extremely dynamic, with guys that are well qualified that are back in Nigeria that are growing. Nigeria has 180 million people. It's a massively captive market if you get it right. Opay, very clever. They've come from Asia, imported, I think I heard the story right, is 2,000 or 3,000 or 20,000 small motorbikes. So they brought them in, trained the drivers, and the next day they had a business. This is when you've got money behind you and you cleverly understand this thing. So the government has now shut down that you cannot drive people around on a little motorbike as a taxi. Okay. It was very popular in Nigeria. Everybody used to do it. And in the last couple of months, they shut that down. But it gave Opay the benefit to build their app off a ride-hailing app, like Gojek and Grab and all of them did. Most of the super apps have built off this platform from ride-hailing, and then it goes to food delivery and other delivery, and then they add money because the driver now suddenly has money, and the people so they add a mobile wallet to it. Once you have a mobile wallet, then you can do anything on top of that, So now you can start playing around. Now you start bringing commerce into it, and this is where we bring in some nice things that we play around with. So we bring in help with the merchant onboarding. We have a great platform that does that. The mobile money and all of those pieces of the puzzle, helping and bringing these things. And now you slot in a telco on top of this. So now you have a telco super app that is starting to gel. So there's interesting things happen. So what happened with Opay? They then had enough people on their platform to make it a really, even if the ride-hailing has stopped, the flywheel has spun.
It's already going.
It's already going, and they've just raised $400 million at a $2 billion valuation. The biggest raise in Africa so far. for a early stage startup. But Chinese money. So very good. But localized stuff. Flutterwave, the big raise as well, Chipper Cash. So there are interesting raises happening across Africa for this, that guys are suddenly realizing that, wait a minute, the African market is going to be, because Southeast Asia was kind of booming development, booming economies, and they're quite advanced. So a lot of money went in there, but venture capital there is now very expensive. So to go into and invest into businesses there is an expensive exercise.
So they're looking for value.
Now you're looking for value. Take a look at the African market, and Africa is becoming really interesting because the middle class is starting to gel and grow.
Yeah.
Africa's got its problems and always will have, but it's also got the vast amount of people, and it's got a vast amount of opportunity.
Young people.
Yeah.
In
Young
many
and
cases,
middle,
very educated,
mobile
savvy.
Mobile savvy. It's a fully mobile continent. It's a mobile only. It's not mobile first. It's mobile only.
I think back to many years ago, 20 odd years ago, when I went on holiday to Kenya. I know this is obviously apps and what have you, but I was stunned at that point about how many people were paying for things through their mobile phones, their old Nokias and things like that.
The
Like,
M-Pesa
way more
had
than
just
England.
gone over 30 million users, I think. It was on the news this last week or something. But if the Vodacom guys are watching this, my apologies if I haven't got the number wrong. But it's a fantastic figure. M-Pesa, what they're doing in Kenya is great. They made a few mistakes in the rest of Africa that hasn't taken that mobile money or the M-Pesa platform that wide. So there's opportunities for other platforms that are starting to play around.
Interesting. While you're talking there, I'm thinking of a couple of other I can't mention one particular name, but there's a company that I came across the other day that's really looking to grow in Africa, but they've got what you described there as a super app where they've effectively, I thought they were a gaming company and a gambling company, but they're actually not. They're a mobile payments company.
Yeah.
And their app just happens to be able to, you can plug in various bits and pieces, and they are looking at Africa for huge growth. And then you also have in the payment space, we've seen recently, and I think the name of the PR company, not PR, the VC company in the UK is Salt, who have their Yo-Yo brand, which just bought Y Group down on the foreshore there. Correct. And I see the logo's now gone up with Yo-Yo, and they're just busy pulling in that expertise and buying those. So there's obviously a big focus on the African market.
Correct. Now Africa is really everywhere, and what COVID has brought is that it's okay to deal with people that are outside of Silicon Valley. Now, a lot of Silicon Valley VC or American VC sits within America. They realize that it's okay to speak to a guy on Zoom. He doesn't have to physically meet someone. I can actually sit across a Zoom scenario and sign a deal and finalize it and get into those markets from a distance. COVID has taught us this, that it's okay to be able to do, you can put money anywhere in the world now because the borders have gone away. It's all, you sit on, people do not want to connect with people that much anymore. They want to stay away from things. You yourself in COVID, I'm lucky, I've been able to miss it. But the whole basis around it is it's allowed, and the guys have had to do that. The venture capitalists and the money that's out there has said, wait a minute, where can we go with this stuff? Suddenly they're waking up to new territories and new areas, and the returns are really good because the markets are big enough for this and the opportunities are there. And mobile first, mobile growth, mobile, and then e-commerce and delivery and digital commerce and all of that type of stuff is exploding everywhere. It's quite spectacular.
I like the term spectacular you used there because it is. And you just see we as consumers, what we're doing now in the last couple of years. I mean, even last night I sat here, I got in from the office, and I needed wood, and we needed some stuff for the kitchen, and I couldn't be bothered to cook. So within literally 6 touches of the button, I had Checkers 60 coming to my door with wood and some stuff for the kitchen, and Uber Eats were on their way to feed the kids. And I was like, this is amazing. Like, that's just the beginning of where we can go with this.
Correct.
Rather than that schlep of going, I've got to stop at the shop on the way back, and but it is a spectacular growth. But there's so much to unpack there. There really is. I think in terms of, I just want to touch on your Forbes article because I read it this morning, where you're talking about distribution trumping innovation. And the feel I got from that article was that it was almost like you were sort of very openly admitting to things that you'd learned through trial and error, where your focus as an investor and as a strategist for many businesses, that you've been looking at the innovative product and trying to pitch the innovation, but actually it's the distribution that you should be looking at. And is that the same? Are you finding that across Asia and Africa now as well?
It's been that like that all along. You know, as long as you've got distribution, you can build anything. What's the name? A business associate of mine has that as his LinkedIn. That's his whole explanation of his whole business is build distribution. You can build anything on top of that, and that is the key. You know, is if you want to. This is if you want to build big. You can build a nice right? Family business, you know, that you can have nice cars and nice houses of a local business, and you've got great product. And the product, you know, you've got to tick all the boxes along the way. The product's got to be good. It has got to work. And why distribution? Because if you build distribution, you also build trust. You know, so people are not going to open up anymore. He's not going to open up an app because it just, you know, there's some other great PR and marketing campaign. People become clever. What they want to do is make sure that it is used by other people. Does this thing work? Can I, you know, is it going to deliver on what I want? Your public out there has become slightly more savvy, and this allows you to be able to that whole distribution scenario. You know, the lessons I learned in the Forbes article come specifically out of price check. We cut our teeth on that thing. We came out and we built a great product, and you know, it was so good. We won App of the Year worldwide. In 2013, we built a price comparison app. It was before smartphones. It was early days, or the early days of smartphones. We understood the local market very well because we built a price comparison site, a product that could show you the prices of product offline, the retail products. It had a barcode scanner in. This was early e-commerce. At that point in time, everybody was thinking e-commerce is online and you have retail. The argument I've swung, you know, I sing this song many times, is the person or the company that covers that online to offline bridge, and this market is bigger than both of them. If you can cover this and be the center part for people to be able to find whatever's online and offline, and what I mean by offline is retail near you. Yeah, it's more relevant for me to show me what's near me than for me to know that something's online and I can get it in 3 days' time. I might need something right now. What's interesting is that the local commerce has escalated. You were looking for things yesterday. The guys have become clever. Now, so the things that you're looking for, you can get within an hour. That becomes an interesting thing. I'm not going to delve into the sudden need to deliver things faster. People don't want that. They want to be able to find what he's looking for. He doesn't need to have it in 10 minutes. Yeah. It's not a necessity. Not in emerging markets. Maybe in a crowded London. In London, you might want, you're too lazy to go down down the road to be able to do this, and they have somebody that can deliver it. But I think that's a race to the bottom. But the basis around the distribution trumps innovation. So we built this with price check. So the lesson here was we built something great. We got a great reward. I got lots of media coverage for it, and I thought because of that, everybody will download it. You know what? It didn't happen. Came back here and I was like, why are people not downloading it? We've been in every newspaper. I was on radio and all the kinds of stuff. And there we learned the lesson that you've still got to throw marketing money at it until such time as you have distribution. When we sold Price Check, we were at about 5 million UVs. We were a small company and we were the same size as Kalahari at this stage. With numbers. At some months we were more than, they were 450 people, we were at a max 40 people. So, we understood that the whole basis, but then we had distribution. Now we started getting clever. Now we were
and then distribution in that terms is users.
Yeah. So my word with, the understanding of distribution is users. Yeah. So the definition of distribution cuts into users. So if you have that, you can now start adding things. So we started adding delivery and payments and that type of stuff, and then we sold it off to a venture capital company. So the thinking and the basis around that was that learning is stuff that I bring across to a lot of people as well. And what makes it interesting you'd have people come into business now or come into the strategy and say, but it's going to cost me a fortune to get distribution. So what becomes interesting now is we live in the world, or the economy of distribution platforms are already there. So let me explain. I was speaking to a budding e-commerce business last week. The guys are building a platform. They want to build a marketplace for African product. So I said to them, okay, so the train is left for trying to build a new marketplace if you don't have lots of money behind you. But what's interesting is that the telcos and the super app thinking are all getting into commerce. The marketplaces are there. All you've got to do is list on them. And then you've got the distribution.
You jump on there, yeah.
You know, Amazon.
I mean, a cruder way of describing it is like having Uber Eats and putting your restaurant on it.
Yes. Yes. Then you
want to get there.
So that's the Uber Eats argument. Is they say we have all the clientele. So that's what they did. They've got the distribution.
Yeah.
Now they will charge a restaurant 30% to be able to get access to that.
Same as listing your app on app on Apple and Google.
What's interesting is, so we've written the strategy for Vodacom, which are going to launch with their super app soon, is that you build a platform and you open it up to third-party players. So they have, this is on WeChat, it's called mini programs, and I think they're calling it the same thing on Vodacom, and you can go and build on top of that.
So you can build your app on
correct
on their platform,
correct,
and then it's got. And
what becomes really interesting then is because now I can go and build a dog sitting app or a house sitting app or a pet sitting app in any town in the country, and it will only address the people that are in the geographical area. It'll not show it to people in Cape Town, and that's the key. Is that I can localize the whole play around it. So the mini app play, and where does this learning come from? Two things. Facebook, if you take a look at their history, when they opened up to third-party developers, can you remember Farmville and Zynga? And that created engagement.
Yeah.
Because Facebook had opened it up to third-party developers. So everybody could do that.
Yeah.
An iPhone, I was thinking about this thing, another example. Why did an iPhone explode so massively in engagement? Because they opened it up to app developers.
Yeah.
That's what makes the phone engaged. That engages me and keeps me there is the app developers. So an iPhone Apple isn't a hardware company. They sell that phone that I can build all the other stuff on top of it that I want. And that is, I as a third party, as a small developer in the middle of nowhere, can go and build an app and put it on an iPhone. There's a different argument about how I let people know about it, etc., because there are a billion apps out there, etc. But I can do that. I can build something for my local community, and I can load it on this platform because it's there. Same goes for any commerce that you're playing around with now. Do not be shy, and to use the audiences that are there. They're open because the more engagement they can get, this is like a very interesting symbiotic relationship. The platform needs the third-party developers on them to make them more engaging, to keep people on them. But then on the flip side, they also have the access to the audience. This is why the telco space is so interesting. Telcos themselves have the audience. They don't want to, they're losing out on data and everything else, and on call, everybody calls on WeChat or something, or on WhatsApp. Not WeChat, on WhatsApp, because it's there, and so the telco loses out on the voice income on that one.
Yes.
But so how do we capitalize on this audience? And we capitalize on the audience by opening up all of these players on it, but then what you do is you capture them with the mobile money platform that you've got, and maybe the big data. So you can, I now know what the people are all going to use on my app. What are they going to come and do on the app? And I can pick it up. How long they spend on it. Now I can go sell that to advertisers or engagements or economies or, so an interesting ecosystem that is developing here. But so there are enough audiences out there. You don't have to go and create the audience. You can use another audience to grow your platform and then jump out of it.
That's fascinating because I think, I mean, we ourselves are in the process of, we've developed a research company and it's going really well, but we've taken that online and we've got a subscription-based platform which we're looking at launching as well. Yeah. And half the issue that I have when I'm sitting there thinking at night is how do we get the audience? But what you're saying with this kind of thing is the audience is there.
Go and look.
Go look. And so you don't need to. Your marketing money can be spent there because the audience is. Yeah, that's very.
Yeah,
that's
go and find the audiences.
And the mini aspect of it as well is very interesting because it's almost like an on-app on your phone. Again, crudely, like the old yellow pages that you used to get delivered to your door, which is all local. So you knew that the plumber that you're about to call is like 10 minutes down the road. Yeah. It's kind of that rather than having to flick through a book. It's actually there, correct, and that's fascinating. That like you used the dog sitting example, but we have a guy that comes around and helps us out with our dogs occasionally. Yeah. He has a very Cape Town local, this mountain CBD area for his business. He would do really well being on that having an app on that platform.
Yes. So depending on what platform that he plays around, or you might have local access. There are a bunch of interesting local platforms that people use, but use them. They're there. If you take a look at Facebook Marketplace, which is going to decimate any other classifieds platforms I think out there. They just have so much dominance and distribution. Is that you can advertise very, very locally, so it'll only show. It's a very clever platform.
I love it. I mean, personally, once you're on it, you don't stop.
Yeah, and
certainly before regardless of how someone's record collection being delivered to your door, and a lens for the camera that I don't even own, that kind of thing. But,
no, exactly.
But on that note as well, I read a very interesting article about how LinkedIn is doing a LinkedIn marketplace, which is and then basing it on Facebook, and it's all going to be, which in the legal space specifically, they believe is going to be an explosion for sole proprietors, people who can just list their wares on that LinkedIn, and whether that then becomes a race to the bottom in terms of price and everyone starts
not necessarily because they own that platform.
I suppose. But
so it depends on who you're playing it with. I mean, is it if it is between the legal guys? I don't think those industries always need a level of professionalism. Yeah. So you're not going to discount yourself down.
But it's a great platform for the sole proprietor. I mean, and other industries are probably the same, but in the services industry, in a country like South Africa that has, I think, 13,500 registered law firms, most of which are one-man bands, having a platform like a LinkedIn marketplace where they can actually advertise themselves and be seen and be visual to a big audience. I think that's going to be a real game changer.
Yeah, the aggregators
and they've got the audience.
Yeah.
That's it. And then you look at other platforms like Netflix, they've got the audience. I'm a big sports fan and I love boxing, and there's a subscription platform called DAZN, which is an American firm which launched, I think 3 years ago, a huge VC backing, and they're specifically focused on boxing as their main thing, but they've just branched out and bought the Premier League rights in Japan and things like that, but they concentrated on the two things: building the audience at a very, very low price, getting that audience, and then came the product, then came the boxes to this platform.
Rob, you make an interesting comment there that I'm going to leapfrog off, is the come in at a low price. Big mistake I'm seeing a lot of the kind of super app thinking guys are bringing, is they coming in, it's too difficult to get onto their platform.
Right.
They're making and I'm not going to mention them, but it's one of the telcos that are playing in the space is that their onboarding route is an absolute circus. You have to go through a phone call. You have to send all kinds of. It's probably 5 points of contact. I went to and experimented. My wife is an artist, and I want to get her product onto the super app, and I've given up.
Really?
It's just such an absolute pain to be able to try and fill in all the forms. The contract is 35 pages. Now we helped with a Norwegian and UK backed company last year to be able to launch a loyalty / payments platform. and help them to. The onboarding process is so slick. It's super quick, fast, few questions, boom, signed up. I have a dashboard in the back and I can go through all this stuff and I can start doing my. You must be able to get from signing up to having something active in half an hour to an hour's time. That in itself is how it should go. This is just an absolute, I'm like, you know what, it's just not worth the trouble. Currently, I'll take a look, see how it goes. The guys that have a very slick sign up, it is a little bit, it took a little time, but when it works, is Nedbank. Nedbank has their Avo app, which is one of
the new app.
Yeah, the new
Avo. I'm
Avo.
a Nedbank customer,
Avo.
and their online app is brilliant.
Yeah, it's not the banking app, it's their commercial app. Avo.
Oh, I haven't looked at that.
Just go take a look at it. When you open your Nedbank.
Their banking app is spectacular.
Yeah, it's very
I was at the point of leaving them because I thought this is so archaic. I can't deal with them anymore. And they've launched this app. And I'm like, this is amazing.
Yeah, Nedbank's app is slick.
Very slick.
And then just when you open up the front page, you'll see there's a little advert for Avo. AVO. Click on that. That's their commercial platform. It's gone through a few glitches. And, I've watched it very closely, how it's merged and pulled itself together. But it's coming together very nicely. And the onboarding is slick and fast. They jumped on a phone call with me. I like their personal touch on that. But it wasn't a difficult phone call. It was just hey man, let's open up quickly. This is what you do. This is how we register you. Walk through that. And now all I need to do is load product. And they've got an audience of 300,000 users, I think.
And you can put anything on there.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah, we always have the funny thing that you've got always, you've got to. There's got to be some criteria on what picture you put on. Because there's always somebody going to put on that picture. And we had that in price check. So you've got to have a little bit of data checking, so that the scenario is there that you can put something onto the super app.
And then you've got the audience.
Then you've got the audience.
That's amazing. So that's really for businesses like mine, in terms of the subscription based research model, things like that where you need an audience, you need to be on a platform.
Use the platform.
Those platforms
remember, you can climb off them once the flywheel is running.
Yeah.
Now, so once you've got enough people to be able to do that, there's a lot of platforms. I don't have an example right offhand, but that grew on somebody else's coattails and then climbed off and did their own thing.
Yeah.
But you can always do that, or you can just sit and stick around with it.
But those kind of platforms for the audience really does allow a business to think globally, right?
Yes.
That must be part of the strategy.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I was wanting to mention is so the e-commerce guys that I was speaking to last week. So I'm like, okay, go on to the big players that currently in South Africa, go on to Takealot, do the others. So there's the audience. But why are they not listing on Etsy?
Yeah.
Or Amazon? Or in Asia? All those platforms are there. No? And then they because in Etsy, if you have a product that you can sell that is a man-made product, or they do artistic stuff, it's paintings and clothing and all that type of stuff. So it's a perfect model for them. Etsy has, 30, 40, 50 million users a month that come through. You immediately have that audience. And there was a mention about courier services. I'm like, nobody worries about paying for couriers if it's a product he wants.
Yeah.
Half the people online in South Africa order from Amazon. It takes a little while to get here. The other half are ordering off Wish. And, Wish has just made a deal with the post office. Now, I don't know how effective it is, but you can get a product off Wish within 2 to 3 weeks at a tenth of the price. It's become really interesting.
They have actually always been prepared to wait. I remember I used to have a friend of mine who had an online furniture company. And he said, people will wait if it's the right thing that they want.
Correct.
Because then they know that you've got to ship it.
Yeah.
I don't have it in stock. I'll wait 6 weeks for it to be on a boat. That people will wait as long as it's good enough.
I mentioned to you earlier, I dabble around in motorbikes and things like that. Lots of the stuff that I buy, I could go to the local dealer and I was taking a look, I was ordering lights the other day. And at the local dealer, it was 10,000 Rand. And on Wish, it was 750 Rand. I could wait 4 weeks for it. I didn't mind.
I can wait.
And it's not a part of, it's not a fundamental part of the engine or something like that. The bike's not going to, put me in danger if the lights don't work, or if the lights that I ordered for 700, for 1,000 Rand, stop working after 6 months. I really don't mind.
Yeah, for 750. I'm
but they're perfectly fine. They're perfect. They work like a charm. So there's a lot of stuff that I do that way because it just makes sense. It's easy, and I don't mind waiting.
So in terms of the work, a lot of the work I remember from when we first met a few years ago, and I'm guessing that quite a lot of your what keeps you busy in the day at the moment is still strategizing and helping companies go to market globally. I'm guessing that's 80% of your day is what you're.
Yes, and then I'm looking at new opportunities,
yes.
new things that are happening. We touched about it just before the talk. Is there's the crypto and
Please tell me about
the crypto space, which is a fascinating scenario. And you've got the pros and the cons of it, and the whole dynamic around it, and the every now and again you soberize yourself with the basis around what the value is in this, and is it only perceived value from everybody, and because there's so many people in the business already that everybody perceives the value of it. That everybody's just chasing each other's value up. But then you go and take a look at the back end behind it and an understanding of why it was built, and read the white papers, the Santoshi white paper, and the understanding of where this goes and the cleverness around it. And there's a massive business opportunity here. I made a note just now. The size of the market is massive. In Nigeria, for example, 32% of people across the board have some other involvement or work with crypto.
32. That's huge.
South Africa is per capita the third highest in the world. Nigeria is number one, 32. South Africa is third at 17%. 17% of all South Africans have dealt in it, and compare that to the US, which is only 7%. Now, that shows you the size of the scope. I was speaking to somebody the other day. In Zimbabwe, any transaction over $100 is done in crypto. In casual, between people. They have a mobile phone or crypto wallets, and they just QR coding, sending stuff around. Friends of mine have a crypto ATM. They have a crypto ATM business where you can go and pay in money, and you get Bitcoin for it. And this is how they're transferring money across the continent.
Amazing.
People are sending money from Nigeria. They just send Bitcoin and go to the ATM, draw it, and the money comes out. And
it's becoming the norm. And again, we're talking about, in terms of the makeup of a lot of the countries in Africa, very young, very switched on, very educated, early adopters of mobile technology and mobile wallets, and probably more so than the US and the UK, and more,
massively so.
Also, again, I'm going to pick my words here carefully, but maybe in some cases a distrust of the overarching regulators and the traditional banking system, especially if you're in somewhere like Zimbabwe, where you've got like $100 trillion notes and things like that.
I have one of those.
Oh, you do? Brilliant. I'd love to see it. So you've got an adoption where you're used to it. It's quick, it's fast. You build up that trust very quickly, and that then for, I suppose, investors and platforms like some of the companies that you help, that's a platform that they can utilize.
Correct. So the whole space around crypto is still early days for us as well, but the understanding of it is getting there. And what I'm looking at doing is, or what I'm looking working very closely with some guys, is to build crypto for the man on the street. So crypto and something that is called, it's a pretty new term, is DeFi, decentralized finance, is where they start bringing in lending and borrowing and insurance and those type of things into the crypto space. I'm not going to delve too deep into it because it becomes a little bit theoretical.
The asset that they're insuring against would be effectively crypto, a Bitcoin.
That, or I'm prepared, an insurance company is prepared to back the risk. I can do that with crypto as well. Now, so as I said, I'm to unpack that here, and we might want to just see if
I know, but my brain just exploded because I'm just thinking, okay, so if I had X number of Bitcoins, I could lend against that, or I could borrow against someone else's, and then you can. Am I wrong? Could you then set up some sort? Could you insure against it? Is it opening up the market up to the average man on the street to be able to effectively be their own insurance company?
That,
in a way,
and the big thing, or the interesting thing about the lending and the borrowing is fascinating, because you've got, in South Africa, 17% of people that are that have crypto or some other form of crypto. This happens big abroad. Nobody's doing it locally. So we're taking a look at how does one get into this? Because I can go right now, if I have $100,000 worth of Bitcoin and I want to live on it, I've got to sell it.
Yeah.
Biggest problem there is Bitcoin is now at 50,000. The believers say it's going to go to 100,000 at the end of the year, or what, wherever it goes. But how about I just borrow against it? I use it as collateral for a loan.
Yes, so you still own it, but
I
you're
still
using
own
it as
it.
collateral if you default on
There
it.
are rules behind it. If the price drops a certain amount, that part of it is liquidated, etc. But there are clever ways to do it. Or I can just borrow against it, and I can rebuy Bitcoin. So now suddenly it becomes a very interesting long tail. So now you're putting
And just keep
to
borrowing
the factor
and
of
buy more and buy more and buy more.
yeah.
To the factor
So you could do a very interesting play there if you have that. So you have $100,000 worth of Bitcoin, lend 50 and buy another $50,000 worth of Bitcoin. If it goes to 100,000, if it doubles over the next year, the money that you originally had, you made 3 times on it, not just double.
Because
100,000, I lend 50, I buy Bitcoin. Now I've got 150. If this doubles, my figure, my number is 300,000, not 100 that went to 200.
Yes.
And I've not needed to increase my asset.
Yes.
All I'm using is the system. Then you take a look at a taxable event. Now internationally, this is called. I was going to look for the article somewhere. Is where people have used their shares in companies to lend money against it, and not pay tax on it.
Yeah.
Okay, so all you've got to do is the same goes here. I'm not advocating anybody to not pay tax on stuff.
Of course.
But it's a loan. It's a loan. Sure, I have to declare the income from the loan in my tax, but it's a loan.
Yeah, it's a loan. Yeah.
You don't pay tax on a loan.
No, you don't. Yeah.
So I can start playing around in that game.
But also for the young entrepreneur out there, or more seasoned entrepreneur like myself, where you're looking at options in terms of raising finance or borrowing and lending. It's another option. It's possibly a fantastic option, quick option with multiple. And people could be based anywhere. So it opens up that market.
Because it's so new, we're looking very interestingly at, because I like new ideas, new concepts, new scenarios. You don't want to get away from opportunities that are available. These are the things that we're dabbling around in.
But that will also fuel further growth on the African continent as well.
Yeah, very much so, because the economies across Africa is very decentralized, because there is just no, for many years in Nigeria, the banks weren't talking to each other. So you couldn't transfer money from one bank to another. A lot of those things have changed. To do a SWIFT transfer costs 2 or 3%. I can do a crypto transfer across borders. It costs nothing.
Yeah, I mean, that's a big driver, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, we could spend all day here, but I'm conscious of letting you get on with
Not
your
at
day.
all. No.
But in terms of, I think certainly for the people that follow this podcast and people who listen to me and watch the things that I put out there, largely they are experienced business owners. But I know from talking to them in whatever industry they are, whether it's a services industry or whether it's a product-driven industry, there is a bit of concern coming out of this COVID period of where they should be putting their efforts. What's next? How much has business really changed? And that's one of the reasons why I really wanted to talk to you, because you only need to, anyone listening just needs to Google you and then realize that what you've been involved in terms of getting the world, I use this loosely, but getting the world to where it is now in respect of, you were very, very early adopter, shall we say, of mobile technology and knowing where this is going, super apps, etc. So it is fascinating talking to you. But I want to stop short of saying what's the next big thing. But, again, back to a large part of our client base is law firms, but their clients are businesses that you help.
Correct.
So where is this world going? What do they need to be looking at? What are the opportunities?
Rob, this is just the way that I see the world. So people can take it on face value or take out of it what they want. The the opportunities that are available out there, I think with the escalation, what COVID has done is opened up masses of opportunity. The world is full of opportunity. What's grown exponentially is crypto or associated mobile wallet payment type scenarios. I think mobile has become very key, and I speak from a point of view from emerging markets. So these are where your guys would also take a look at. The opportunity for first world or established markets, US, UK, some countries in Asia. Is the emerging markets is where the new gold is happening, where the new development is happening, and it's happening in mobile, it's happening in payments, e-commerce. But I'm always loath about the word e-commerce, because e-commerce, everybody thinks Amazon. It's not that. It's digital commerce. Now, that has opened up things. You talk about law firms. What is becoming very apt in multitude of businesses is the aggregator. You find the law aggregator guys like Caveat Legal that you can go to, Yvonne, yes. Where you can go to and get all of your services. I don't need to go to a big law firm. The dissemination of business is becoming really interesting, that you can find the things that you're looking for without having to go the traditional route.
Yes.
I think the world is changing in the scenario where things are becoming more personalized, more. You were talking about your e-commerce delivery or your delivery that you were looking for yesterday. It was very personalized for you.
Yes.
Because these things are there and they're becoming available and they're developing fast. Add to that then, how do you, so I personalize these things, but how do I get into the market? The beauty is that all the pieces of the puzzle exist. I don't need to build a payment company. I don't need to build a Google Maps. I don't need to build an e-commerce website. I don't need to find an audience. They're all there. All you're going to do is pull the pieces of them together.
A lot of people don't know that.
And I speak to a lot of guys. You were talking about it. How do you speak to guys that are our age, that are going into businesses? Is one, don't be scared about the world that's out there. Just do a little bit of research and find the pieces of the puzzle. It's all there. You can stand on the shoulders of giants. Uber did this. Remember, Uber doesn't own cars. They didn't build a map system. They didn't build a payment system. They didn't even build the gyro inside the mobile. All they do is pull those things together, and now they know where the mobile is of the driver and the mobile of the person. All you need to do is pull those two together, and then say, okay, we will show you where this guy is, and you pay us to be able to find this guy. That's all they do.
They didn't reinvent the wheel. They effectively just...
All you do is pull pieces of the puzzle together.
A traditional taxi service.
Yeah. And the big M&A companies that are looking to invest. So I don't dabble in normal infrastructure and those type of things. It's stuff that, bridges and roads and that. But in your other business opportunities, the scope of opportunity is so awakening. I'm going to take another country. Ethiopia is as big as Nigeria. They've just given out their second mobile license. Just 3 months ago. And now this is another explosion. We looked at this explosion in Myanmar. So Myanmar 5 years ago.
We had an office there.
Had no mobile until the political thing opened up. They were signing up 5 years ago. Now we're 25, 30 years into the mobile economy. The big money the guys made in the early days. Nobody does that anymore. Myanmar was doing it 5 years ago. They were signing up 1 million people a month. It was just an explosion of absolute opportunity. And they were all smartphones.
Amazing.
They missed the early phone, they missed the feature phone.
They just went straight
to smart.
Yeah.
So, take a look at that for scope of opportunity.
It's amazing.
Now suddenly Ethiopia. Now Ethiopia is a very controlled country, but you can get into them. There is. So I'm not saying go to Ethiopia. What I'm saying is the scope for opportunity is becoming interesting, because with all the VC money that's gone into African payment platforms.
Yeah, loads.
If you're not, and people wanting to launch payment platforms in Africa it's interesting, because there's the big player or the local players that are well invested are well secure, but there's not no opportunity, but there's massive move towards it. So people are moving towards it. So if you want to it's like bringing Bolt into Africa, where everybody thought Uber owned it. The opportunities are there. You've just got to understand the local market, work with local guys and local people that understand how these markets fit together. And the scope for growth and opportunity is extremely big. And what's interesting is the Africans are innovative and they're clever and they work. You take a look at South Africans and Africans across the continent or across the globe are doing really interesting things. We'll always pull back to our South African guy, because he thinks like a South African is old Elon in the US.
Yes.
The new CEO of Amazon is from South Africa. The South African they built AWS out of South Africa in the early days.
Next door to my office. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Him and Hannes built that whole platform. And this is where it all started. This is where Amazon makes all of their money. It comes from here.
It's an
clever guys.
Entrepreneurial environment.
Entrepreneurial guys.
Yeah, no, I mean, like yourself, I've been lucky enough to live around the world and spend a lot of time in Asia. But this is the place where I get really inspired by entrepreneurship.
The guys that all they got to do is just think bigger than just South Africa, because the South African economy is very. It has to solve other issues. It has to solve education. It has to solve the jobless figure is 45%. I think 70%.
7, but it's not. It's higher than that.
70% of people under 25 are out of a job.
Yeah,
that's absurd.
That is
so.
absurd.
Those are other issues that they've got to solve, and I will not get into a political discussion. But
no. It could be here all day.
It's atrocious what is happening, but the opportunities. If you're looking at opportunities, this is Africa's growth. But do not sell your product in America.
Well, also sell your service. It doesn't necessarily
service,
have
whatever it is.
Yeah, because again, obviously I deal with a lot of lawyers and accountants and things like that. And I'm just, whilst you're talking, I'm thinking about they don't have to reinvent their service. They just have to look a bit wider. And like you just said there, use the platforms that are available. Stand on the shoulders of giants. And it's interesting because we did a study the other day, and I was talking on camera to a colleague of mine. We were talking about, we're getting to the stage now, especially in the service industry, where South African firms are starting to look at the continent. They're not just looking internally anymore. They're going, actually, we can be in Botswana. There is an opportunity for us. And they're not going in and going, we're South African, we're going to do it our way. They're actually going in and going, we respect the market, and how do you want us to work? But there are other so what I'm trying to get at is there's a lot of companies could be looking further afield, and they don't have to reinvent the wheel. They just maybe have to just look at the platforms they use to reach that audience.
That's you're asking the question is where is the future and where things are going, is that the world has opened up.
Yeah.
Through means of Zoom or whatever platform you want to use, through mobile and through access to everything, not only information. So it's the internet, but a guy in the middle of under a tree in Kenya can access somebody else around the world and sell his wares to them. Yeah. That can happen. What you got to do is go and find the pieces of the puzzle of how do you get to all of these places and how do you solve the problems along the way. You don't have to solve them. Just go and find those pieces, because they're there. They're all available. I can now build a full e-commerce platform in South Africa, and I can get access to 1 million or 30 million people without having to spend any money of my own to be able to get there.
And I'm conscious of your time, so I'm going to wrap up as well. And like I said, otherwise I could keep you here all day. But I think from the business owners that I speak to, and myself as well, in the past, there's a little bit of trepidation sometimes of making a mistake and making big mistakes. But that's where companies and leaders and strategists like yourself come in. Businesses come to you to try and avoid those pitfalls.
Yeah, work with the guys that have made the mistakes. Man, I've made many.
Yeah. Well, that's the next interview. We can swap war stories about mistakes we've made.
But it is, partner with guys that are there, that understand the business, that have burnt their fingers multiple times.
And if they say to you, there's no market for you, then don't go in there. But if they go, well, have you looked at this? And
Yeah, there's a beautiful
like
line that I picked up other day, and I won't claim credit for it myself, but it is a lot of people say, "Ooh, there's a gap in the market," but they don't check. What some people don't look is there a market in that gap? You've got to make sure of both, So I when I lived in the UK, I enjoyed watching Dragon's Den.
Yes.
And there were people selling the absolute nonsense stuff that is around, and it's like there's no market in that gap.
There's no market.
One classic one that I can remember: a guy trying to sell a glove that when you go to Europe, you put a glove on your left hand or your right hand, so you remember you've got to drive on the right. And the guys from Dragon's Den tore a hole in the guy because they were like, "There's no market in this gap. Nobody's going to go and buy a glove because it's white now suddenly so that I remember I drive on the right." It takes you 10 minutes to understand how the roads are different, and then you're off.
Yeah, just remember where you are, and then interesting. I actually had in the past some wonderful dealings with one of the dragons, James Caan.
Oh yes, yeah.
I dealt with him quite a few times because he made his fortune in recruitment, which is obviously an area that I'm in as well, and fascinating because he again spoke to me quite a lot. He didn't use that terminology, but you could tell what he was looking for was where is there a market in that gap? We had at the time I was talking to him. It was the time that we were really ramping up in South Africa, and I was going to be moving here.
Okay.
And he was really digging deep, not really necessarily to see the opportunities for his brands that he owns, but is there a market in the gap that I'm going into?
Yeah.
Kind of really what he was getting at.
Yeah.
So that was very, really interesting. Look, I have really enjoyed this. I could really, really talk to you all day. I mean, we've barely touched on the list of things that I wanted to talk to you about, but I just wanted to thank you, André, for your time.
Robbie, so well
and please, let's keep in touch. Let's do this again at some point in the coming months.
Sure. I'm on LinkedIn. There's just Google and you can find.
Yes, I was going to say, there's people listening to this that are going to want to reach out to you.
Easy.
Is the best way to do it through LinkedIn?
Yeah. I'm very open and available. I'm not. And I like sharing the experiences that I've gone through, because it's stuff that I cut my teeth. What was it in the late 80s, 90s? So that's 30 years ago. Starting businesses then, burning my fingers, playing around in mobile. All of the interesting things that we did there. So there's a vast amount of experience that we bring to the party. And that I bring to the party with anybody that I engage with, and I like doing it. It's nice.
Well, you definitely have a passion for it. I mean, you can see that every time I've sat with you, you've got a real passion for the next thing and looking at and helping, genuinely helping companies as well. And I do think for Cape Town, or maybe South Africa in general, although you are global and you are available, but for those business owners in Cape Town, that you are a bit unique. There aren't many people in this city like you, from what I've seen, in terms of your experience and your vast experience of successes and a few little failures.
And I live in Cape Town because we live in Cape Town.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. If you're watching this and you haven't been to Cape Town, make a plan.
Make a plan. Well, look, André, thanks so much for coming. I really, really appreciate it.
Right,
and thanks very much for your time.
Thanks for your time, man.
Cheers.
Good.